excited about this topic because wives move different. We move different. And Kevin talked a lot about this. We're lionesses. We're not tigers. And so we have to be very strategic in how we show up and to get the outcomes that we like and how we remain in our feminine. So we're going to be talking about that today. And as you all know, if you all have questions or comments, put them in the chat. And those of you who are watching the replay, if you have any comments or questions, you can catch us in the mix. So happy to be here, and let's get into it.
Absolutely. And thank you all so much for being here live. I do see Shell's comment in the chat. She says, good evening. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for the compliment, sweetheart. I appreciate that. I was just checking the mix online. If there's any comments, I always try to make sure that I respond as you all have questions, or if you have anything that you want us to cover, please put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand. So I always like to come to these prepared by picking my guy's brain, right? Because I know from my experience, but I really believe having access to a man at all, but a high value man, or whether it's blue collar, Henry, hit squad, high value, men think differently. We're wired differently for a reason. So I think there's a lot we can learn from. So I asked him, I said, all right. So when it comes to moving like a wife, and I'm looking at the title that we had here, we're going to talk about moving like a wife in the vetting, dating, and relationship process. And I asked him, what can we do better, or what do women need to do better? And I got an earful, so I always like to give you all the scoop. One of the things that he said is that everything that we do needs to scream wife all the time. So again, remember when Kevin used to ask women who would call in, but are you a wife? And honestly, it used to confuse me because I'm thinking, well, no, because if they were married, they wouldn't be calling you. But I had to remember that we are wives first as we show up, and then a man finds that, we adjust ourselves to him. So what does that mean? I try to give you all some tangible examples. So if there's anything that we are doing that is not wife behavior, especially in a public forum, per my guide, that needs to stop. If you all remember, we used to hear a lot on Kevin's shows, women would say, well, I will submit when, or I will, listen when, or I won't overtalk when. We know in our community, the numbers are against us. So one of the actual tips that my guy said, even if you're with a man who you don't consider that this is the one that you're probably going to marry, you can still practice being a wife and submitting in certain ways so that when you do meet the one, you're ready. Because if we haven't grown up in that type of household where we've seen it modeled, we're behind the 8 ball in our competition, and we all know that competition is fierce. So the more you practice anything, whether you're a sport or whether you're trying to do a skill, you're going to get better at it. So that would be my first tip. So if you're doing anything socially, online, outside, whatever you do in private is your own thing, but the way that you dress, the way that you speak, the way that you act in public, look at those behaviors and identify them as, would I do this if I were the wife to a man that I admired and respected? And even if you're not yet married, but you're acting out of character, try to bring that in line so that you'll be ready when you do meet the one and he finds you. So that's my first tip for today. We'll come around. Lisa, I'm going to come to you. What tips do you have as far as moving like a wife?
I did the same thing. I asked my husband, I was like, what was it about me? Because, like I said, my husband was in the Navy at the time when I met him. And, we lived in a place where there was a lot of Navy and military and stuff. So I was like, what was it about me? And like I told the ladies in previous stories, I intentionally went to the club that I went to by myself. I have 2 other sisters that are real close to my age, so we'll stick together. And I had girlfriends at the time, and I would always go out with them. And with your girlfriend stuff, you got to stay together. Nobody leaves alone or with somebody else. We all together. We rode together. We leave together. That was kind of our rule. Mind you, this was 20 years ago. But my point is that the night I went out and met my husband, I did not go out to dance. I went out to be seen. I was dolled up. I didn't plan on dancing, and my husband was actually out with his sailor buddies and his father. And his dad was like, oh, go talk to that and stuff. And I was like, I'm not dancing. I don't want to dance. And he kind of got me on the dance floor. I was just like, but he just noticed that I didn't give the same. And when you're with the girls, I noticed I didn't get the same comment like, well, I can't leave, or not that I couldn't go anywhere, but the girls like, they kind of, especially my little sister, she'd be like, let's go. I don't like this, whatever, because they come in packs sometimes. My husband came to me all by himself. So that was the one thing. He was like, well, you weren't surrounded by a bunch of girls, and you have to be dictated by them. That was one thing. And then a couple of days later, when we did go out on our date, I didn't look the same. He was like, most girls that he used to talk to, they come out looking like almost like they looked at the club when we go out on a date with them or something. And then also he had to come pick me up from my parents' house. So it was little things like that he noticed. And let's see, what was the other thing? He also said the one other thing I thought was interesting. He was like, he would take girls out to the mall or something, and they would get mad or attitude when he opened the door or did something like a gentleman. And when I did it, he noticed that I waited and stuff like that, and I knew that he was supposed to do that. He was like, you don't act like some of the girls that he's been meeting around town. Again, like I said, 20 years ago, I met my husband. Actually, I met my husband January 11th, 2003. So I met him 20 years ago, a few days ago, and we've been married for 17 years. And I asked him that, what was a few things. So I would say he definitely said, like Kevin said, he said, I moved him. And I didn't really think about the other stuff, but I knew how I met him. But when he said it, you act different in situations. He noticed that. And another thing, he had friends because the military place, there's military guys all over. They would see me and my sisters out, or just me, or any, they don't know me. I don't know them, but they know me. And my husband always knew while we were dating what I was up to, or if I was like other girls. She gets around and stuff. But that wasn't the case for me. So he knew that I moved different. So that's how he knew. So I would say, yeah, that helps out.
I love that so much, Lisa. And I'm coming to you, Hermisha. But one thing that you said, Lisa, that I just want to emphasize, sounds like, and happy first meeting anniversary of 20 years. I think that's beautiful. Your now husband was out with his father, and his father said, go talk to that one. And I heard when you said that, because being a wife, the role of a wife, Kevin always used to say being a wife is a job. The men of old and the men of today and the men of the future are going to want the same thing in a wife. So again, when we're out, even if we don't see the one, somebody that's connected to them could be seeing us. And I just wanted to stress that. But Hermisha, I'm going to come to you because I know you gave us a couple of videos to watch too.
Yes. No, this is so good. So good. And Maggie, you said something so important. Being a wife is a job, which brings us to the wife resume. And I actually finalized mine, y'all. I'm getting ready. It was such a good activity to do, ladies. And I looked at the resumes I've written for employers. Don't we really take time to really spruce up our skills? And we put them verbs, demonstrates, excels, exemplifies, multitask, right? We need to do a resume for our future husband, because you are literally interviewing for a job. Being a wife is a job, right? And so my first point today would be staying in your feminine. But what that looks like is when you start to craft your wife resume, not leading with your education or your money. This is really important. Kevin talked about this. And again, that's not to say that your education and how much you make doesn't matter, but men are looking for prerequisites before they look at that part. Because like Kevin said, he's like, I don't just want an airhead now. I like an intelligent woman, right? But guys are visual. So they're looking at your fitness, your femininity, and your cooperation first. And then it's almost like if you sort of, all right, stage one, ding, then they're going to look at, okay, can she think though? Can she critically navigate? Does she have some discernment? Does she have some wisdom? Can I trust her to make decisions? Right? And then all the other things. Is she cooperative, or is she gonna fight me every chance she gets? Or you know what I mean? And it goes down, it goes from there. So the umbrella of that point, stay in your feminine. Don't lead. When you start crafting your wife resume, do not lead with your education. In the employment world, we do that. And that's a shift for us ladies. Is what I wanted to highlight that. We lead with our education. For me, my licensure, I have to, show that I'm licensed in multiple states and my clinical skills and all the things. But when you're writing your wife resume, you're leading with the skills that highlight that you can manage a home, that you know how to make decisions, that you know how to submit. There's evidence that have you submit with a previous employer, or have you submitted to a pastoral leadership for those of you in the faith? They're looking at your level of cooperation. They're looking at, can you create a sweet aroma in the home? Because the man's priority when they're looking for a wife, they're looking for a place of rest and peace at the end of the day. I mean, men are really, really simple. Not to simplify men, but they really don't ask much. Just give them some love, a little back scratch, and a sandwich. Not to that degree, but you know what I mean. So I would say lead with your femininity, not your education. It matters, but in your wife resume, just highlight your femininity. I would say that.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much, Hermisha. And Hermisha did, I don't know if I put this in the post, but we did a little bit of pre-work before coming to this episode. She sent 2 Kevin videos to rewatch. So I got through 1.5 of them, and I will post it in the event along with the replay. One was the infamous, can a stray be domesticated? And then there was another episode about the lion and the tiger comparison. And if you all aren't familiar, I'll summarize just a little bit. But the second point that I had, after picking my guy's brain, is for those of us that are mothers. Clearly I'm a mother. I think we're all in the Wives Club are mothers. And, sometimes it's kind of that beat down, well, you messed up and, there's no chance. Not every man is like that. Of course, most men want their own family, but most men also realize that, especially as you get to a certain age, people have a past. But what he said, and it's in line with his first point of you need to show up as a wife consistently. You also need to show up as a mom consistently. And what that means, to quote him, this is him, sexy soccer mom supreme. Okay, so let me break that down. What that means is that if you are a mother and you're entering the dating space as a mother, then you need to act accordingly. Now, you don't have to be mom to him, but for most men, their mothers or their grandmothers are very near and dear to them. So if we conduct ourselves in a way that reminds them of the love that they feel for a mom or a grandma, that already kind of moves you into, in his mind, he's imagining what life could be like with you. Now, if you don't have any children, you don't have that experience, that's fine. But, the example he gave me, he said, I don't want to show up at the soccer match and you're wearing red bottoms. Like, you don't realize how, what is appropriate in different areas. So if you're out with the kids, you need to be hands-on. You need to be attending to things. You need to be good maybe with other people's kids. So that was one of the things that he said. I think it goes in line with adjusting ourselves, to our man. We've talked about that here in the Wives Club. There are some basic things that we can do to get better, but each man is going to have their own expectations. It's our job to study them and to adjust, not to wrestle them down to the way that we want it. And if it's not a match, it's not a match. But there are some basic things when we talk about the vetting, the dating, and the relationship process. Again, it comes back to not wasting time, because it may not be the first one. We are going to have to practice because, like I said earlier, a lot of us were not groomed to be wives, and that's okay. But just factor in that time of acting like a wife, carrying yourself like a wife, including things that are wifely and excluding things that are not wifely in your day-to-day. So just wanted to add that, and we'll take another lap around. If there's any questions or comments, put them in the chat, and then we'll move to the two Kevin Samuels videos. But Lisa, anything else to add on being a wife? You're muted.
No, I'm looking forward to the video part, but I'm good.
Absolutely. Okay, Hermisha, what about you?
Yes. And this may segue into the video. The other part of moving like a wife, we have to be so strategic, ladies. And by the way, the things that we're teaching here, we are really trying to live this. We're applying these things. This is a space for us to continue to do the work. So that's the heart disposition that we're coming from. So I would say moving like a wife also means being strategic in your dating. And what I mean by that, and we'll get into it, Maggie, from the video, not moving, getting too used to being out there like a stray in terms of being independent, and we lose a sense of that domesticity because we're out and about all the time, and we're so used to just doing things for ourselves that we lose a little bit of that domestication, if you will, right? And part of that, ladies, and hear me, you guys have gotten a sense of who I am. You know I'm coming from a good place. So anything we teach here, we are coming because we want everyone to get the right outcomes. But as wives out there dating strategically, we have to particularly be careful and mindful of low body counts. As they say, I use the language men say body count, but right? Meaning, Kevin would always say, yeah, you don't go out with a man unless you're sexually attracted to him. Yes. And I would like, understanding Kevin's heart and having the privilege to meet with him multiple times, I think that he would co-sign what I'm about to say right here, just knowing his heart and knowing him. I would go as further to say, not only do not go out with a man that you don't think that you are sexually attracted to, right? I would also say, as a wife, don't go out with a man that you can't see yourself potentially marrying, right? Because if you're like, you know what, I've talked to this guy a little bit over the phone or whatnot, or we FaceTime, we talked, or we text, you've done the prereq work, you're sexually attracted, yes, but can you see yourself potentially, not that you've already had the wedding day and all the things, but just, us as women, we can really, is this man, I kind of got a good feel of this. I can see myself, he's solid on these, he's got the character, okay. All right, if it actually morphs into something, I'm actually open to engage and see where this goes. I think that also helps prevent the gray area of not just going out with somebody that we're sexually attracted to, and then it kind of can get gray where it's like, wait, we've already sort of crossed that intimacy line, and then, wait, what are we again? Do you know what I mean? Well, I guess this didn't work out. And not that we can guarantee that it will, but I'm just adding an extra layer of a strategic approach, if that makes sense, all right? And that's with the umbrella of moving like a wife. We're not just going out with men that we're sexually attracted to. That's important, but we're going out with men that are husbands, and that we can see ourselves with them because they are a husband. We have vetted them, and the only reason why we're sitting there eating whatever we're eating in front of them is because we know they're a husband. Yeah, so I think that helps, and then that kind of helps us transition into the video regarding, being more domesticated and not astray.
I really like that. Thank you so much, Hermisha, for a couple of reasons, and then I'll give context, and I have just a little clip to share. So you bring up a good point about not even wasting, if you will, time with someone who's not marriage material. We've said this multiple times as women. We don't have the benefit of time to waste. You know, a man can spend his 20s and even 30s, that bachelor life. How many men have we seen, you know, like the George Clooney's or whatever, and then, you know, they're that silver fox and they can still get married, have a family, and it's fine for them. Unfortunately for us, we don't have that opportunity. So I do like what Hermisha is saying. For another reason, even if it doesn't turn into marriage with that man, at least you've put into practice what it would be like. What happens in our community sometimes is we spend our 20s, maybe even 30s, turning up hot girl summer, and we haven't, what did Kevin always used to say, like our relationship muscles have atrophied because we don't know what it's like for a man to tell us, no, we're not doing that. Full stop. And it's kind of like, well, what do you mean? You know? So getting used to being in relationship, I think is good with the caliber of man that you would want to marry. Obviously, the men do the asking because they're the ones who propose. But I do like that because it saves us time. And it also gives us the practice that we need, because you're never going to arrive. You always can get better. I saw something in the chat. Shell says, my rule is no relations unless I'm exclusive. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely nothing wrong with having your boundaries, and you have that conversation. We're all adults. You have that conversation in the beginning. It's good for you, and it's also good for a potential suitor to know, whoa, okay, this is the type of woman who is serious about the decisions she makes. She's not just out here. All right, so let me see if I can share my screen, and then I will explain. It's a little bit of a harsh clip from our dear Kevin Samuels, but you know, that's the way that he used to give it to us. All right, so I see where I can click. So the first clip is from an episode. I believe he was doing Men's Week, and he did an episode where he was comparing lions and how they move with tigers and how they move. And if you watch the episode, he was basically saying how lions are basically pack animals. They operate in a pride. They have a lioness. They are basically built to have, you know, a family, a kingdom. They're social creatures. Compared that to a tiger, who is in and out of the jungle, up the trees, down, hunting, kind of more of a loner. So, you know, when we compare it to our own human nature, are you a family man or are you a, you know, lifelong bachelor? Neither is better than the other. They're just different. And the point that Kevin was making is that you need to know the type of man that you are, so you know if you're looking for a lioness or a tigress, because just like there are different types of men, there are clearly different types of women. But here in the Wives Club, I believe we're here because we do want marriage, long-term relationships, and that type of bond. So I remember when Hermisha sent over this link, and I was like, okay, but this is for the guys. She said, actually, no, it kind of applies to the women as well. So if you are a lioness, to me, that means you're the type of woman who wants marriage and family, whatever that looks like for you. And so you're making decisions that take you down that path. Likewise, if you are a tigress and you just want to live your hot girl summer and do that, there is an avenue for you, but they are not one and the same. All right, so Kevin had done his monologue, and then some men were calling in, and I believe this was a young brother who had 3 children, 2 different women. I think he was 27, and he was just trying to, like, you know, how can I find what I'm looking for? Kind of like he bumped his head, and now it's like, now I'm ready. Kevin kind of read him the riot act, and so I'm going to play that clip, but I want us to listen to it, because replace that young man. Instead of a 27-year-old man, it could be a 37-year-old woman who has wasted her years and now she's ready. All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you all are able to hear. All right, let me know. I just have this. It's a 1-minute clip, so it's just 60 seconds. I think I'm clicking on it. Okay. Oh. Let me get the sound. Hopefully it's not too loud.
this. We spend an inordinate amount of time in our youth trying to fuck our way into manhood. That's why you got so many young guys who aren't even where they should be, thinking, I can fuck my way in, I can make it this. Where do you rank amongst other men? We're the only group of men who walk around with our dick thinking that makes us a man. Go around other groups of men, they don't have to walk around and hire the CEO, or whatever the accent you want to put in. They are not judged by their penis, their ability to fuck. And we have bought into this shit. Stop it. Stop leading with your dick. Stop leading with your game. Stop leading with your mouthpiece. What kind of...
Okay, so first of all, I want to make sure, was everybody able to see and hear? Did it work?
We heard it, but I don't think we saw it, unless that was just me.
Okay. All right. So I'll have another clip. I'll try and get better the second time. But if you all were able to hear the audio, you can imagine. So when I went back and I listened to this, Kevin is admonishing the young man who had called in. But I think it applies in connecting to what Hermisha just said about body count. And I will always say, nobody expects you to be a prude. However, like Kevin said, unfortunately in our community, that manliness, because the example hasn't been there, meant young men kind of get caught up trying to spread their seed around to feel like a man. And unfortunately, in the community, a lot of women sometimes, because we want to compete with men instead of support our men, we think we can do the same thing, what leads to, what did Kevin say, more damage, harder time to bond, and all of those experiences. So young women, hear me, having a low body count, if at all possible, is not just because, we're saying that, but if you want to be a wife uses discretion with her body. So just be mindful, especially in the space where you think these are the caliber of men that you want to be married to one day. This is not the place to have that kind of hot girl summer experience, because then the outcome that you get will probably not be the one that you want. All right, so Lisa, I'm going to come to you. Any thoughts on what Kevin said as it applies to how a wife would move differently?
Are we talking about the stray ones now?
I'm coming to that one. I'm coming to that one next. Yeah, this one is Lioness and Tigress. So maybe the difference between how a wife versus what do they call them? City girl?
City girls. Okay. Whew. Okay. No, all I can really think about is I remember when I was in my college years, and maybe just because of my upbringing, I would go out and party, but I wouldn't I wouldn't do all the. I just don't understand why other people would do other things, and that would lead to pregnancy, STDs, or who knows what. So I think people would recognize. I guess my biggest thing when I was younger is I didn't want to be labeled as a party girl, so to speak. And because I grew up on military installations and stuff, they had other names for people, like if you hung around with barracks too much, or if you hung around, I just never wanted to be associated with that kind of stuff. And it does follow you, and I hate to think, like I'm talking about 20 years ago, I hate to think how it follows you now with the new technology we have. And I guess I kind of came to this conversation, or came to this, what I'm talking about, because I have a daughter. She's about to turn 5. And I guess when I think about her being in competition with her being a lioness, and her in competition with tigers, like I guess the best way I can put it is I'm trying to set my daughter up to be a lioness. But I also know, being a young person, that if you have all these tigers around, you kind of want to go with everybody else. So I kind of look at it as like, how can I set my daughter up to not want to go with the flow? Because I even myself kind of went with the flow, but I knew better, and I just didn't understand why everybody else did. It makes sense now, but I kind of see where Kevin is going with that. So if this helps, that's kind of where my mindset comes from, because I'm not out here dating right now, and I think it is kind of totally different from what maybe some of us had to do it maybe 20, 10, however many years ago. But I would still say it still kind of holds true. What was true then is true now. And it's probably always going to be true, hopefully, that you want to move like a wife, you want to move like a lioness for a reason. And like you said, because men are always watching. And I think that's what I learned early on. You know, you start getting tagged or named or being, even in high school, you know, they just start putting you in certain categories, whether it be true or not. And that was a big deal for me. And I guess because I didn't want to shame my father or my family, but that's the way I was raised. And another reason I'm so big on all this and where my passion for, you know, helping other young women and having people have outcomes like that is because, like I've said before, I had a father, Kevin reminds me of a lot in the way he talks and how he talks to women, that would tell me these things are important. And I may not have liked it as a young person or understood it, but I totally appreciate and I understand it now. So like I always said, when Kevin used to get in daddy mode with the young ladies and they get an attitude or upset, there was a reason behind it. And as someone who had a great, awesome, and still has a great, awesome father, I don't want to get all emotional about it, but there is a reason why God made us to have parents, mother and a father, and the father to have guardianship over us until we have a husband. So if I don't say nothing else, I hope that means something to y'all. And even if you don't have a father or a father figure in your life, there's still hope for you. There's resources like what we're doing, and just, you know, because I have people in my family who don't. And my father didn't have a father, but he turned out to be a great dad. So it's not like there's no hope for you. We can all do better. We can all learn, and we can, you know, make it better for our next generation. I'll leave it at that.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Lisa. Yes, when Kevin would get going, it reminded me of my dad too. Hermisha, any other thoughts on the lioness and tigress comparison?
Yeah, you know, it's really important because you have to also know who's approaching you too. Is he a lion or is he a tiger? Or is he a bear? Lion, tigers, and bears. Isn't that a song? Yeah. No, but really, you have to know who's approaching you as well. And you have to know who you are. And this text here is moving as a wife, moving as a lioness. And Kevin had a whole video of that, of lionesses tend to their home, their cubs, the whole thing. And I'm going to go there. I was trying to sense if I should share this, but I will. This is important because when a man approaches you, it also gives you an idea of what type of man he is. And so, you know, unfortunately, I had an experience where that happened, and this person presented themselves as if they were a lion, if you will, or it came into the mix and turned out to be a tiger, or at least that's how they presented themselves to me. And some other stuff going on that was very disrespectful and pretty scary, actually. And so that's no longer an issue. But this is applicable because we need to know and be discerning enough to know the type of person that's approaching you, but then also not to waver in knowing who you are as well, and to stay in your feminine all the time, even if a person may get out of character, and to always move like a wife and all the things and being respectful. So I would say that, but I love this video because it helps us as women, no matter what, move as a wife. All right. So that was what I was going to say on that.
Absolutely. So I did post the link here in the Google Meet in case anybody wants to rewatch that video. You see that even though Kevin has left us, his message still lives on. So that was the lion and tiger comparison. And so even though it was for Men's Week, I highly recommend we as ladies listen to it. We can exchange lioness for tigress in a lot of what he's saying. Or like Hermisha just said, it'll help give you discernment. When someone is coming at you, you will be able to tell, or we should be able to tell as a woman, if this man is planning for a future with us, or what did Kevin say? I want you here for a good time, not a long time. And then with that wife mindset, you will decide, is this something that I even want to entertain, or it's a waste of my time? So the other video assignment that Hermisha gave us was another episode that Kevin did, the thumbnail alone. Y'all remember that lady like reaching out with the crazy face? So the title of the video was, Can a Stray Be Domesticated? And oh my goodness, going back in the rabbit hole, Kevin had a way with words and a way to kind of trigger, that thing. And this is another one of those video clips where he's using the imagery of like dog training, or kind of like behavior school, whatever they put dogs in. But basically, we know a stray, or the way he defined it, is a stray animal is one that used to be domesticated and then now finds itself out in the wild. And he tells, a nice story about, growing up and having regular dogs, and then there was that little, teacup dog with the papers, and just how people can present themselves, but then when are tested, true nature kind of comes out. So I'm going to play the clip, and hopefully I'm going to share my whole screen this time. Hopefully you all will be able to see and hear, but if I get the video wrong, you'll still be able to hear. This is a 1-minute clip. Can a stray be domesticated? So I'm going to go here and go here. All right, so I just sent that to you all. So let me go to my clips. One moment.
Yes, you can have an opinion about things, but can you choose to offer it when he asks you? We're talking about wife school. Before you can become a wife, you got to be a girlfriend. Before you can become a girlfriend, you got to be chosen. You got to be kept. You got to be kept, and you got to stay on your own leash. Oh, shit. Yes, because so many of you want to break your leash and run away and wreck your own homes. Oh, God. I'm going to hell. But you going with me. So, welcome to Godfathers. Modern what is it called when you take somebody doggy daycare? I don't want to call it dog school, but think about it. Think about what I'm talking about. Not etiquette courses and all those things. That's something different. What we're talking about is actually learning how to go from being a stray to a domestic. Yes, you can have an opinion about things, but can you?
All right, let me pause here and let me just see. Were you all able to hear and see this time? Okay, sorry, we had a little bit of a hiccup there, but you see Kevin was going in about being going from being a stray to domesticated. The point he was making is that, of course, if anybody could choose, they would choose the dog that's, neatly unwrapped, that comes with the papers, that has the pedigree and all of that. But again, we live in the real world here, and, sometimes you have a past. But in order to go from, as he called it, stray, to being domesticated and being a wife, which means we live in a man's home and our support system to him, are we able to get in line, And I know he was using the dog analogy, which kind of hits hard, but he talked about, can you offer your opinion when he asks, or do we always have to have the last word? Do we always have to steer the bus and say what we think? Can we stay in line? Are we happy at home, or do we always have to be here, there, and everywhere, married on paper, but still turning it up at the club, with our friends, or whatever we did before? Can we get on his program? Are we customizing ourselves to our man? It is a lot. And you hear when he talks about this, even in jest, like, I said, and Hermisha said earlier, being a wife is a full-time job. And so the more training we have to prepare for that, the better prepared you will be, because when you meet, as they say, a real one, and he expects you to be ready and this is what we're doing, you're going to be kind of all over the place, deer in the headlights, if you haven't given yourself the runway to practice. So I will drop the link into the chat here, but that video was Can a Stray Be Domesticated? Ideally, we don't have stray tendencies, but that is one way that a wife would move. You would notice, hey, I'm a little bit out of pocket in this area. This is what's going to be expected of me. So let me not just show up at the event and say, okay, put me in, coach. This is how I prepared ahead of time. All right. So Lisa, I'm going to come to you. Any thoughts about the stray being domesticated episode?
Yeah, both the episodes, I kind of mixed them in together in my talking. Sorry about that, everybody. But I did watch this one and I enjoyed this one too. Especially when you start talking about, you lie with dogs and you come up with names and fleas and all that stuff. He was really setting people off and set the ladies off, I'm sure. But it's true. And I kind of mentioned it before, stuff like that, what happens. So, I mean, that's why I appreciate Kevin, what he did for us, because he would just, nobody was telling females this. And I was one of the people that, I put it this way, I have a 4-year-old. I'm about to turn 44 at the end of the month. And I would be around, so if people look at me like, I tell them my age, like, you here to pick up your grandkid? I'm here to pick up my daughter. But my point is, I'm around younger people because my daughter is in an environment where people of all ages, not just as old as me, have children. And I see a lot of what he's talking about, when I had to go to daycares, children events and stuff, and I see these people, and especially the ones that have my same reflection. I'm like, gosh, I wish, we could do better, And some of the stuff that Kevin says, I would see the young ladies just like I see out in the world. I'm like, gosh, this is how they really feel, and I feel bad, and I just know that there's a better way, or if somebody would just tell you the truth and you let it sink in and listen to it. And I think Kevin did a good job of that. And I'm just glad we're able to keep that going on some level. But I guess what I'm really trying to say is that's where I come from. That's why I'm here, and something I feel bad. I don't know why, but I mean, I just want it. I'm here for a reason. I hope that comes across. But this one, I can see why it really made a lot of people upset. But it's the truth, and hearing it from a man is important, because if you want to be with one, you got to be able to take it and, like they say, obey, make changes, or not to, and then they'll go find something else. So that's the gist of it.
I love that, Lisa. And yes, we love your heart. This is a labor of love for all of us, you all. We just volunteer our time. This is just responding to the need in the community. So I hope you all appreciate it. And thank you, James, for the comment with the notepad and saying, I love these sessions. And the men are always welcome, because we want to get better for the men in our community. But Hermisha, any other thoughts about our homework assignment with this Can a Stray Be Domesticated video?
Yeah, he gave it to a straight no chaser, right? So really what I've taken from this, and I think that we all can take from it, is the reality, ladies, is the longer we're on the market, the longer we can be tempted to regress, right? We're all trying to deprogram this way of being strong, independent woman, right? We've sort of unconsciously inhaled feminism because it's airborne. I grew up with that analogy, right? And we're trying to unlearn that and be able to, while we're out here and positioning ourselves to be found, to still nurture our femininity, to still nurture the discipline, right? Our fitness, our discipline of our own schedules. I have 2 girls. When I go off camera, I'm dealing with them. We're managing. This is management. I put that on my resume. Multitasking. And nurturing that discipline so that we are already practicing this thing is what I'm saying, ladies. You know, it's like a muscle. You got to keep practicing it so that when you're found, it's just knee jerk. You're like, oh yeah, that's muscle memory. I know how to do that because I've been doing that while I was on the market, right? So that's what I would say. The longer we're on the market, we don't want to feed into, you know, how the other women are moving out there, because it can be tempting. But you want to stay in your feminine. You want to be all those things and move like that. And then also, if I can add to this point, you know, going back to the low body count, you know, I don't want you all to get too hard on yourselves or psychoanalyze that. I don't know why I say psychoanalyze, but if you're like me, sometimes you can think things till you can't think it anymore. So I just want to say to this that the heart behind a man saying a low body count, what I've learned is that they want to be able to mold you. They just want to mold you. They want to mold you on every level, even in the bedroom. Okay? So go with that. All right? So don't get fixated on numbers or anything like that. But we're just bringing these up so that you're more intentional. You know, if a lot of us move unconsciously, the goal is to be conscious so that we do better now that we know better, if you will. So that's what I would say. And that's all I have on that.
Can I add to that?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I also want to say that, yeah, I do think strays can be domesticated. I believe that strays can be domesticated. I was out there straight before I met my husband. And I was, like I told the ladies, I was in a relationship and it was a stray. And I had to say, you know what? I'm going to do me. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go take dance lessons. I'm going to not date for a while. I'm just going to enjoy myself and get myself back. And then when I got in a good place, that's when I started going back out, and I went up and I went out and said I was going to go out by myself and have a good time, just be seen. And I don't even know why I did that, honestly. I just did it. But I do feel like, you know, because I have friends, both male and female, like a lot of my husband's, he just went on a trip with some old neighbor friends over 20 years. And some of the ones been married a couple times, haven't been married at all. And I feel bad for them, but they still have a chance because they're in their 40s. But I have friends also my age that are girls, and they got dogs and cats, and they're lonely, and they're always going on girl trips. And I see a lot of what Kevin says on both sides. But I have faith in that. I have hope that both the men and the women will find someone. But it does hurt my heart to see a lot of the women of my complexion, reflection, and everything are still looking and choosing careers and work in the bag. I'd like to see more wives and homemakers and people to make the nuclear family. So I don't think there's no answer for strays. I think, you know, doing stuff like what we're doing will make them not strays anymore. So thank you.
Absolutely, Lisa. And I would not be here spending hours of my life if I did not believe there was hope. If it was just doomed, you know, what is the point? But we can always get better. And I love what you said, Lisa. I know why you did it. The same reason I did it. I've shared with you all, I was married young. I had a high school boyfriend, met my college boyfriend at 18, dated through college, got married right after, married for 10 years. And because I was married young, I remember working with corporate women. We would go out for happy hours and these types of things. And, you know, everybody would come with their stories about, what they did and this and that. And from the outside looking in, you think, oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. You know, I want to have fun too. Believe me, what I think we can do better, instead of listening to the women who may have moments of happiness, and that's why, you know, I wanted to create this community, listen to the women who have a lifetime of happiness, and better yet, listen to the men if you can get access to them, because we know, you know, we are not entitled to their time, and they will say what they mean and then they will stop talking. So when they talk, listen to them. But what's happening is like the women are creating, what did Kevin say? Like this echo chamber where we say, oh, it's great. And so when I got divorced, I thought, man, what have I missed out here? Nothing. I remember I created a profile and I was like, what in the world is going on? 6 months later, it was a wrap. I was back in a relationship. And also to the point that Lisa said, a man wants to, dare I say, imprint on you. You are his wife, right? And so if we have too many experiences, I asked my guy about this. You know how Kevin used to say it's hard for women to pair bond. And I said, unpack that for me, help me understand. And he said, like, imagine if you're going out there and you're having all these good experiences, let's say travel, and you only stay at 5-star, 5-diamond resorts, and they're all good experiences, and that's what you have, that's all that you know, and you've had good experience after good experience after good experience, maybe because someone else provided it for you, maybe because you provided it for yourself, it doesn't matter. And then you meet a great guy who can take you to a good hotel, maybe the Marriott, maybe it's not the Whitley, but you're poo-pooing on his best efforts because you've become accustomed to what you've had in the past. And that's why when we talk about leading with all of your accomplishments, even if you have like traveled the world, I have to remember this, you don't want to lead with that because a man is thinking, can I show her anything? Can I experience anything new with her? So likewise, take that to, having too many casual partners, right? Again, not saying being a prude, but if you have, this hot girl summer and that hot girl summer and all these memories, like you're just chasing the next thrill, then when you meet something that's regular, somebody that works hard and, you kind of have to make the schedules work and everything that goes into that, you're going to be looking like, what's wrong with him? When there could be someone else who would trade places with you in a heartbeat. So just be mindful about that. And there was one other thing I wanted to share as far as saving something for your man, and then we'll take the last pass. I've never been to Disney World. And I actually told my guy recently, I said, it's like a little childhood dream that I have, but he's got a timeshare there. And, I said, I've been a lot of places, but I don't want to go to Disney World until I'm able to go with you. And he actually kind of smiled at that. And he was like, really? And I said, yes, I want to build those memories. And so that's something, it's a small thing, but it's something that's important to me. You all know that I've done a lot of work in the etiquette and elegance space, and some of the work that we have to do is reviewing some of these movies like as a case study. So I was watching an old French movie and from the past, and it was really about watching like how they carry themselves. But there was a scene in the movie that I thought would be applicable here. It was, typical love story. A woman who's a maid just happens to, meet a billionaire, right? And they fall in love happily ever after. But he was talking to her about his life, and she was just bright-eyed and wide open. And he actually said, you're so cute. I can't wait to show you the world. Thought about that, and I was like, even though that was back in the past, men still feel that way today. So just be mindful about one, not wasting time and having something that you can share together, because those memories will last forever. All right, Lisa, I don't know if you had anything else as we close out on moving like a wife.
No, I've enjoyed the conversation. Happy to be here. Looking forward to the next one. Hoping I'm sharing some helpful stuff. So thank you.
Absolutely. And Hermisha, any other thoughts as we close this out? Hopefully you all liked this episode.
Yeah, this is really good. This is always good. I always enjoy this, us getting together. This is therapy for me, low-key. Because we're all in this together, ladies. And it's Kevin's mission and my heart and all of us, we're here to build healthy families. And as we build healthy marital families, we're building healthy communities, we're building legacy, and we're restoring primarily the Black family, nuclear family. Not to exclude any other ethnicities, but Kevin was very clear on that. And so that's the big picture, and for us to never lose the big picture here. And so that's something that just I would say to leave us with that, as all the things that you're learning as moving as a wife, as a lioness, and strategic dating and being in your feminine, the big so what is we are trying to get off this market and have families and build legacies and get on about the business, because time is precious and life is but a vapor, and let's make it happen. All right, so I enjoyed this, and thank you all for being here again. It's been great.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies, so much. So the Wives Club is here for you every week. We will have a schedule change for next week, so just stay tuned. There's some travel coming up, but again, I will post the recording in the mix when it's available, plus the links to these 2 videos. And if you all like us bringing back, or me bringing back a little bit of, Kevin's clips, we can definitely include that moving forward. But for now, thank you all so much. We'll see you on the next episode.